for question and answers, because that is so important. I myself actually derive so much inspiration from those questions, because when I see those intelligent questions which don't come to my mind, I learn. So please come up with all the wonderful questions from all the qualified people sitting here, so that we can also be enlightened from those questions, and plus, of course, Prabhu's answers. So, who is coming for the first time here? Anyone first time attending? Yes, thank you very much. So, it's very, because Prabhu wants a very small introduction, so I have to introduce. So, Prabhu has been in Krishna consciousness for more than 30 years, as all of us know.
I requested you to make a one-sentence introduction. There is apparently an entire novel of 90,000 words, which is only one sentence. There is no full stop in the entire novel. So I think your introduction was like that yesterday.
Yes, without full stop. I'm not as good in English as you, Prabhu, but I try to conjure up something.
Oh, that's okay. I think everybody knows me.
So
Those who don't know me, they would not have come if they didn't know something about me. So, the third day is.
but most importantly, Prabhu's lectures, I personally hear his YouTube, very inspiring, and his blogs. Actually, every day I look up to his calendar. You know, there's a calendar which Prabhu last time, I don't know if any of you had the opportunity to take that calendar. You flip that calendar, every day, you get quotes from Bhagavad Gita, which is so inspiring. It makes your day, and then it makes you reflect. So, and Prabhu has got his daily Gita blog. So, of course, all of us know Prabhu's inspired lectures in, top corporations and top Ivy League universities. So, I stop there, and then I hand it over to His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu to take us through the day. And the only thing I wish was, we could have more sessions, but then we'll have it the next time in the new temple and Hare Krishna. New temple itself, sorry. Hare Krishna. His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki.
Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can develop our emotions in such a way that they help us come closer to you. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming today. And today we are discussing a last part of the discussion on emotionally healthy spirituality. And here we will discuss about what we have discussed till now, quickly. So we are talking about what is the effect, how does our spirituality affect our emotions. It can be a positive, neutral or negative effect. And we are trying to understand how to have the positive and to minimize the negative effect. So first I talk about our own self. The three parts we're discussing. Self is to understand that the mind is just like the body. The mind is real. So the body can have a wound, injury, like that the mind can also have a wound. And therefore the mind also needs to be taken seriously. In terms of it may require its own process for healing. Yesterday I talked about how in the mind there is subjective and objective, and what can be a small thing and what can a big thing can vary from person to person. But overall, there is an understanding of these two things are different, small and big things. And accordingly, we need to keep small things small and keep big things big. So that is the essence of tolerance, and that will take us to transcendence. I talk about a sequence. 2.13 in the Gita is giving intelligence. 2.14 is tolerance. 2.15 is transcendence. So today, I'll talk about how our relationship with Krishna, with divinity, affects our emotions. Now, the same prototype, same 3-point framework, if you can take. Our emotions and Krishna. Now, at a positive level, we often hear about the saints like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu being in utter ecstasy, and they seem to have such emotions that we can barely comprehend those emotions. There are the Ashtasattvic Vikar. There are extraordinary symptoms of ecstasy that are there. So, across various traditions, there are this idea that there is a very rich life of devotional emotion that a person experiences when they actually develop their love for God. So, bhakti is, at one level, nothing but an emotion. And we are trying to enrich and our heart, deepen and sweeten that emotional connect with Krishna. And this is what we can say we aspire for. We all would like to experience these rich emotions. And these emotions seem to be so utterly otherworldly that just for ordinary people, they may be even difficult to conceive what it is. When there is ecstasy, then it may happen that there are even physical transformations that happen. The hair starts standing on end. What Mahaprabhu would describe that sometimes his limbs would get elongated, and sometimes his body would shrink into itself like a tortoise. So the implication is that when he would feel Krishna is close to him, he wanted to withdraw all his senses into his body so that none of the senses would distract him, and he could just focus on Krishna completely. And when he felt as if Krishna is going far away from him, then his limbs would get elongated to try to catch Krishna. So that's one implication of that. There is of those remarkable physical transformations. But without getting into the technicalities of those Ashtasattvic Vikar, the idea is bhakti means there's a rich level of emotions which a devotee experiences in connection with Krishna. Now, at the same time, from our perspective, what the negative effect could be that we may feel that as a part of our bhakti, we may have to suppress our emotions. So, this can happen in many different ways. So, for example, one devotee told me that he was from a Christian background. There's nothing to criticize Christianity, but this is in general possible in any religion. So, Jewish tradition actually. So in Judaism, they have the idea of on the day of the Sabbath, you don't do any activity. You don't use any machine. So I was in New York. There are the predominantly Jewish communities there, which stays in one particular area in New York. So there, the idea is that you cannot operate any machines. So on that day, they will not drive cars. They will only hire Ubers. And if they are in an elevator, on that particular day, the elevators in the building are on auto mode. So the idea is if you press the elevator, you are operating the machine. But if the elevator opens and closes without you touching it, then you are not operating it. Because then you can use the elevator. So they find a way because you have to move on in life. But it happened that there was he told that his parents drove a car on the day of the Sabbath. And then in 2-3 days, his parents met with a car accident and they died. And then when that happened, he said, I don't exactly remember that the preacher told me, that the rabbi told me or some elder told me. I told that because I disobeyed God, because my parents disobeyed God and drove a vehicle on that day, that's why God has punished by causing this car accident and that I died. So he said that I felt so much anger towards God. For such a small thing, why such a big punishment? And then, but when I told this to my grandmother says, don't express it at all. If you express anger towards God, who knows what God will do to you now? Isn't it? So now, this is where it can seem that it can become very emotionally unhealthy, even toxic. The natural emotions. So is God such a judgmental or a vengeful God? It's a small mistake and a huge punishment will be given. That is not the conception of God that is there in the general bhakti tradition. So here it's like there are 4 levels at which we can have our relationship with God. Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about as fear, desire, duty, and love. So these can be broadly connected with the 3 gunas. In tamas, in the mode of ignorance, our relationship with God is primarily centered on fear. That there is some very powerful force or being existent up there, and I should never displease that being. If I displease that being, I don't know what that person will do to me. So the whole idea is, this is based on fear. And in general, across religious traditions, religious leaders have found it very convenient to use fear to keep their subordinates under their thumb. So it's very easy to do that. Fear is, now associated with fear in the religious context is guilt. So in the Catholic tradition, in the Christian tradition in general, or Catholic tradition especially, they have the idea that we're all sinful because Adam rebelled against God. And in their idea, sin is almost something like a genetic defect that we all have inherited. And we are all sinful because of that. So the Catholic guilt is quite infamous. And the idea is that, again, this is not only to Catholicism, but the idea is that guilt is also something which creates a form of fear. So fear can be used to control people. Now, should we have fear of God? Well, yes, like should children have some fear of the parents? Yes, of course, But fear should not be the only emotion in the relationship, isn't it? Yeah, nowadays it has happened the other way. The parents are afraid of their children. That is not a healthy dynamic. So sometimes some amount of disciplining is required. And so fear has to be there. But if the only basis of the relationship is fear, that's not at all healthy. Now, the relationship becomes prominently in rajas, it's desire. That means if you give this charity, if you do this austerity, if you do this fast, then God will reward you in this way. And then we could say that is better than fear. We have a positive conception of God as a rewarder, but still it is very transactional. It is very utilitarian that I do something and I'll get something. So in this case, often people are not interested in God per se. They're interested in just in what God gives them. So it's like again a shopkeeper kind of relationship. We give something and we get something. Now duty is in sattva. We understand that God has already done so much for me. My very existence is dependent on God. That the air I breathe, the way my breathing happens, the way the blood circulates, the way the nature operates to provide me my needs. All this is arranged by God. Therefore, I should be doing something for Him. That is, I should be serving Him. That is at the level of sattva. Now, sattva is definitely better than rajas and tamas. But if we only have the idea of duty, it can soon become a burden. Oh, I have to do this, I have to keep doing this. Now, love is at the level of Shuddha Sattva or transcendence. So, we want to come ideally to this particular level sooner rather than later, where we can connect with the Lord. We want to serve Him, we want to chant His names because we love Him. At this level, we understand that Krishna is Krishna's greatest present. That whatever Krishna can give, if he can manifest in our heart, if he enriches our heart, that is the greatest present. When Sudama went to meet Krishna, Krishna gave him great amount of wealth. But Sudama was not infatuated by that wealth. He focused on that Krishna has enriched me in this way, Krishna has blessed me in this way. And he remained became even more devoted to Krishna. He started using whatever opulence he had to serve Krishna more and more. So now it is generally, especially at this tamas level, there can be a lot of emotional negativity. So sometimes if God is presented as a very judgmental being who is out to punish us for every small wrong thing that we might do, then our God is an angry being who will get angry at our smallest mistake, then we may not have a very emotionally healthy state of mind when we are approaching God. So if you see in the bhakti tradition itself, while we talk about love for Krishna, you can call it prema, within that it is described that there are many flavors in that relationship. There is Sakya ras, there is Dasya ras, Vatsalya ras, Madhurya ras. That the Radharani has a particular flavor of relationship with Krishna. Arjuna has a particular flavor. Yashodama has a particular flavor. And these are different flavors. So love of Krishna is a very rich experience. And within that also there are many different emotions. There is fear, there is anxiety, there is astonishment. So there are 7 secondary rasas. Again, I will not go into all these rasas. But my point is that any rich relationship has a variety of emotions within it. So when somebody, for example, if somebody is trying to do something, they're working very hard, they're trying something very much, and then it doesn't work out for whatever reason, then a person may feel very disappointed, a person may feel very dejected. That's understandable. Now if they had prayed very much to Krishna, they had tried very hard in a mood of bhakti to serve Krishna with that particular thing, and then it doesn't work out, then it can be even more painful. At that time, can a devotee become angry with Krishna? Is it that if a devotee becomes angry with Krishna, Krishna will become even angrier with the devotee? How dare you become angry with me? Now, see, normally, you can say in any cultured society, we might feel anger towards our elders sometimes, but we won't express that. That is, cultured discipline is there. You remember I talked about emotions and desires? Sometimes emotions might be there, but we won't act on those emotions. We won't raise our voice against our elders. But does that mean that sometimes they may not do certain things which may infuriate us? It's possible that they may do such things. The point I'm making over here is that life is complicated. And therefore, within life, many different kinds of situations may come up. So, when Draupadi, for example, was dishonored, she survived through it all. Now, if we watch some movie or something like that, we might see Krishna smiling and Krishna raising his hand, and from his hand, the endless garment is coming. But actually there, nobody saw Krishna. Somehow her garment seemed to have become mysteriously inexhaustible. And people thought, oh, because she's so chaste, her chastity led to some mystical intervention or some mystical power by which she has been protected. But later on, when Krishna came to the forest to meet them after all this had happened, so at that time Draupadi broke down. She said, Krishna, I am your friend, I am your relative, I am your devotee. I called you for help. I deserved your protection. Why did you not come? Now, Krishna does not become judgmental. My plan is perfect. How dare you question my plan? That was not the mood that Krishna took. Krishna said that after the Rajasuya Yajna got over, I had no idea that there was going to be this gambling match. If I had been there, I would not have let the match happen. And he said, after that, I had to leave immediately because there was a demon named Shalva who attacked Dwarka. Krishna had arranged Dwarka in such a way that it was like an island. So it's difficult for anyone to attack. But Shalva did it in such, Shalva had got a, by the blessings of Lord Shiva, he had got a plane-like object with which he attacked Shalva. So Krishna said, I had to go there to defend Dwarka. And the fight is described went for 90 days. A very fierce fight, almost like 90 days. And then Krishna said, after we defeated him, as soon as I came to know what has happened, I have immediately come to the forest to meet you. And I have heard poor Panchali that while everyone there lost their sense of dharma, you did not. He says, your conduct there was laudable. Those who have caused tears, they will suffer for their actions. They will be punished. He reassured her. He did not get angry with her for her questioning what Krishna is doing. So in our life, we can have many different kinds of emotions. And as devotees, we may feel disappointed that we tried to do something for Krishna and that didn't work out. We may expect Krishna to help and Krishna, that doesn't work out. So there's a difference between complaining to Krishna and complaining about Krishna. A devotee in a personal relationship with Krishna may open one's heart and express to Krishna, Krishna, I wanted this to happen. I tried this so much. It didn't work out. I'm very disappointed. But complaining about Krishna means a devotee goes and tells everyone else, Krishna doesn't fulfill his promises. Don't worship Krishna. No, that we won't do. Just like in any cultured family, we don't wash our dirty linen in public. Even if say a husband and a wife have some fight, they will not even they don't fight in front of their children. Isn't it? So, it is not that there cannot be any fight. There are each one of us is individual, each one of us is different, and there will always be differences because of that. But there is a way in which that kind of differences are addressed. So the point is that even in our relationship with Krishna, it is not that we have to suppress our emotions. So our relationship with Krishna is big enough, or our relationship with Krishna is big enough to accommodate even negative seeming emotions. In any close relationship we may have, sometimes the other person may have a bad moment and that person may yell or that person may behave in an inappropriate way. And we understand that. Everybody, life is difficult. Everybody sometimes can be provoked by life. Ideally, we should not get provoked. But if somebody gets provoked, it is not that we hold that against the other person all the time. We understand. So Krishna also understands. Just like a baby sometimes kicks the mother. Now if the baby kicks the mother doesn't get angry and kick the baby back. Isn't it? The baby may not even be aware what I am doing. Now if that baby grows up and is like a 25-year-old adult and then the adult kicks the mother, now that would be a completely different level. That will not be acceptable. But the idea is that Krishna, even if sometimes a devotee feels hurt, a devotee feels abandoned, devotee feels betrayed, the devotee never leaves Krishna. I was explaining this in the Radhashtami class also. How the gopis feel angry with Krishna. How could you abandon us? Now we left everything and at night I came to you to be with you and you just left us alone. Pati sutanvaya bhratra bandhavan ati vilangyate antyachyutagataha kati vidhastava udgita mohitaha kitava yoshitas kastya jenishi. The gopis are actually outlining the reasons. They said, all our family members were opposing us. Still somehow we came. Pati sutanvaya bhratra bandhavan ati vilangyate. By somehow getting over all those obstacles, we came in spite of the opposition of our family. Where did we come? Antyachyutagataha. We came deep into this forest. And why did we come? Gati vidastava udgita mohita. Udgita. It was because you played a flute and called me. Now it's interesting the way they are referring to the flute. Normally, if there's a kirtan program, and at the end of kirtan somebody is not attended, I ask, how was the kirtan? If it was loud. Well, no, is that a compliment or a criticism? Isn't it? Loud, we will say not a compliment. But the gopis are saying your flute was udgita. It was loud. So here they are saying loudness, not in the sense of harshness or lack of sweetness. They are saying that the call was so loud that we couldn't hear anything. Your call was so riveting. If a mother of a newborn baby is doing some work in the kitchen and the baby is sleeping on bed in the next room, then what happens is even a little bit whimper from the baby, a little rustle from the body of the baby, the mother hears that because there is so much love and emotion invested over there. So they are saying, Krishna, we overcame so many obstacles and came to you. Why? Because you called us. And then he says, we are Yoshita, we are women, and we have come at night in a dark forest. So 5 reasons they are giving, and they are saying, Kastya Jain, how could you abandon us? So they question Krishna politely, but still they strongly. They question Krishna. So in bhakti, if we are serious about our bhakti, it's not about suppressing our emotions. So when we talk about emotions, there are 2 extremes with respect to emotions. One is we suppress our emotions. The other is we express our emotions. Now if we consider an ordinary relationship, if we feel angry towards someone, now if we suppress our that anger, what is going to happen is that it will stay on and stay on, it will make us burn and then it will explode sometime. If we suppress the anger, we will burn. But if we express the anger, the other person will burn. So in between these two is that we process the anger. We don't just suppress it, we don't just express it, we learn to process it. So process it means, we may write down a journal, we talk with a third person who understands us, with whom we calm down, or we just wait for some time to pass by which we gain some perspective. And then we deal with it. So for us, also this process applies also we process the emotions even in bhakti. So it's not that when something is important for us and for Krishna says it's all this temporary. Why are you bothering about it? Krishna is not heartless, or Krishna is not indifferent to what is important for us. Just like if there is a small child who is playing with a toy and the toy breaks. Now the child will start crying. Now is the mother uncaring about the child is crying? No, it's not that because the child is crying, the mother will also start crying. No, it's not that the mother should start crying at that time. But the mother understands the child's emotions, isn't it? So now, of course, the mother also wants the child to grow up to understand, okay, this is not that important. But at that stage of the development of the child, the toy is a very important thing. And the breaking of the toy is quite a scary, painful thing for the child. The mother understands that. So, moving on over here. So, our topic was, does what matter to me matter to Krishna? So, let's consider it from one perspective. So, if we are here, we have our spiritual side and we have our material side. Now, our material side is often what matters to us. Material side means our health is there, our financial stability is there, our relationships are there, our social environment is there, our social respectability or reputation are there. There's so many things in the material side. They matter to us. Now our spiritual side will be, so if you consider material side, it could include our health, wealth, all those things. Now, with the spiritual side, it's our attraction to Krishna. It's our spiritual practices. Hmm. Attraction to Krishna could be called internal. Spiritual practices are what we are doing. So now, if we consider from Krishna's perspective, from our perspective, if we consider, both are important, but quite often this will be more important for us. Now, from Krishna's perspective, which do you think is more important for Krishna? Yes, our spiritual practices are more important. But is our material side important for Krishna or not important? Yes, it is also important. It may not be more important, it may not be the most important thing, but it is also important for Krishna. So, Krishna cares for the things that we care for. And in this context, when we use the word material side, I'll make 2 points. And then, as was mentioned, when he said that I'll keep time for question answers, that was not just for your information, that was also for my instruction. It's telling me I should keep time. So I'll keep time. I'll make 2 distinct points over here. When we use the word material, so in some ways, we can say this is the spiritual side and this is the material side. So now, of course, spiritual is ultimately bigger, but for us, the material seems bigger. And we may classify it as spiritual and material. And this is a valid classification, but at the same time, it may not be the most relevant or useful classification for us. Because even within the material, we can have, this is spiritual, this is material. Now within the material, we can have sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattva, rajas and tamas. And there is a big difference. Say, if somebody is praying to God, somebody is alcoholic, and they don't have money to buy a bottle of alcohol. And they go to a bar and they pray, oh God, let some other alcoholic be in a generous mood today, and so that I can get a bar, I can get to drink something. No, because that is also prayer. And say, somebody's child is maybe fallen very sick and there's a critical surgery going on. And they are praying, oh Krishna, please let my child survive. Let my child heal. Now, can you equate both these prayers? To say that both of them are material is really very superficial way of looking at it. Yes, they may not be necessarily, we may be praying for the body of the child, but no, this is broadly within the boundary of dharma. As a parent, we have to take care of our children. So broadly, sattva is often pro-devotional. Rajas can be often non-devotional. Non-devotional means that it is largely, say, how much money I have earned, how much prestige I have. Now, these are not necessarily immediately anti-devotional, but tamas would be anti-devotional. So understanding this difference is very helpful, that if somebody cares a lot for tamasic things, Krishna may not care for those things. Krishna may say, better you become detached from those things. But sattvic things, they are important, and Krishna does care for them. They are a part of our dharma. We have to do those things. So sometimes this difference between material and spiritual, it can be very artificial. The material spiritual difference, it can be understood in 2 different ways. We talk about the material spiritual difference. One way to understand it is in terms of the composition. Composition means what something is made of. And the second is in terms of application. So composition and application. So for example, this mic, is it material or spiritual? It is material. But Prabhupada would say when we are using it for speaking about Krishna, then it becomes spiritualized. So in terms of composition, we can look at something. In terms of application, we can look at something. So if an object like a physical object like a mic can be spiritualized, then can our desires not be spiritualized? Somebody may want wealth, but their idea may be that, okay, if I have more financial stability, then, or I have more financial flexibility, then I can practice bhakti better. Now, will that actually happen? Well, it depends. Sometimes we may get money and we will think, okay, thank you, Krishna, bye bye. So that is also a possibility. But that's not a necessity, that's not an inevitability. So we may need things, so we could say that we may need material things for serving Krishna. And those things are not necessarily anti-Krishna. But depending on how we use them, somebody can become infatuated by wealth, somebody can become infatuated by power, somebody can become infatuated by prestige. And then they may go away from Krishna. That is possible. But it is not necessary that they have to do that. So in our life when we function, what is important is that rather than separating the material and the spiritual, we make sure that we focus on how am I using this in Krishna's service. So if we see our child as Krishna's child, and then we are praying for a child's well-being, then that can be broadly included within the ambit of bhakti. Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbhas called this as Aropa-Siddha Bhakti. I won't go into the technicalities at this point, but the point is that bhakti is not just a small set of activities, or how we do our puja, how we do our japa. Our whole life can be done in a mood of devotion. And when we are acting in this way, that is it possible? So we can say things in sattva and rajas, they are artha. Artha can be wealth, artha can be our relationships, artha can be various material valuables. So ideally speaking, we can go in towards two extremes. That if you consider artha and there is paramartha. So rather than differentiating between things as material and spiritual, we can differentiate as artha and there is paramartha. So wealth is artha, reputation is artha, health is artha. These are all things of value. Now, the two extremes would be that we value only artha, and for the sake of artha, we forget paramartha. That is not healthy. Now, on the other hand, if somebody values only paramartha and neglects artha. Now, there are a few saints who do that, but that is not the normal way people are expected to function. See, Prahlad was in a situation where he just could not do anything at that particular time. And therefore, he accepted that whatever happens, Mare Krishna, Rakhe Krishna, Mare ke. Whatever Krishna is your will, I'll accept it. So, but is that the standard way everyone practices bhakti? The way Prahlad practiced bhakti, is that the way Arjuna practiced bhakti? No, Arjuna fought a war. So the normal sustainable way is that we have artha for paramartha. We use artha for paramartha. So Arjuna worked very hard to develop his archery skills. He developed his archery skills and he used those in the service of the Lord. So we know that incident when Drona was testing his students and he asked them all, what do you see on the top of the tree? So what did Arjuna say? I see only the eye of the bird. Now Arjuna did not say I see Krishna over there. Isn't it? No, why not? A devotee should be seeing Krishna everywhere. That is true. But actually speaking, what happens is, when we are doing something in this world, we need to do that responsibly. And in that particular context, the remembrance of Krishna was that, okay, my archery skill, I will use for Krishna's service. So most of the times when we function, we use artha for paramartha. Suppose we have a program at our home and we have to cook prasad. And we are not very good at cooking. And we are cooking an item which we have never cooked. So we do it in a very devotional mood. We pray to Krishna. We have nice kirtan going on. And there is a nice big picture of Radharani. We write on our kitchen, Radharani's kitchen. And we cook that food, we offer it to Krishna. Now, Krishna will be pleased with it. And only Krishna will be pleased. Isn't it? That in this world, artha is also important. We need that particular skill to do that things well. Suppose we get a heart attack and say, there are two doctors. One is a devotee doctor and another is not a devotee doctor. Now which doctor will we go to? Are you sure? Yeah, whichever is the better doctor, isn't it? Whichever the competent doctor. If you go to the devotee doctor and the devotee doctor says, we have to do a heart surgery. I promise you while doing heart surgery, I'll be chanting Hare Krishna. Says, will you do the surgery properly? Says, I can't guarantee that, but I'll chant Hare Krishna. He may say, I want to go back to Krishna, but not so soon. Definitely. My point is that ideal is if you have both, it's excellent. We have a hospital in Mumbai, we call it Bhaktivedanta Hospital. It's run by devotees. So there in the operation theatre, we have a picture of Narsimhadev, ripping apart the belly of Hiranyakashipu. So in the early days when a patient had come, that is a place also where there are people from other religions in Mumbai also stay. One person came, what is this? He said, this is the original operation. So what happened? This is operation successful, patient liberated. So now the idea is that for all of us, when we're functioning, artha is also important. So should we seek artha? Yes, we seek artha so that we can use it for paramartha. The test here would be that our desire for artha should not become greater than our desire for paramartha. That we can desire artha. There's nothing wrong in desiring artha. Somebody will say, I want wealth, so that I can have a big house, we can have big satsang programs, I can have a big altar for Krishna. That's fine. But somebody says, okay, because I want to build a big house, so that's why right now I have no time to go to the temple. I have no time to come for satsang. I have no time to do any japa. I don't have time to do the puja. Then what will happen is, then, yes, we may say, I want to do this for Krishna, but that desire for doing it for Krishna also has to be sustained. It will not be sustained if we are just mixing with materialistic people and we are not nurturing that desire. So we can have a desire for artha, but that desire for artha should not overshadow our desire for paramartha. So that way when we function, then we won't be neglectful of our, what we may call as the material side, but we'll be neglectful of artha, but we won't become completely infatuated by artha also. And one last point I'll make, that, see, bhakti, sometimes we talk about pure devotional service. Pure devotional service means you should never pray to Krishna for anything material. Yes, that is true. That's true. But at the same time, it is bhakti, it's in steps. Krishna talks about it in multiple places. He talks about it from 12.8 to 11 in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavatam also there are places where he talks about it. So we could say, first, for many people there is service. Then there is devotional service. And then there will be pure devotional service. So we cannot jump to pure devotional service right in the beginning. And you force somebody to jump to that level, it will be very artificial. It's ultimately bhakti is about developing a real relationship with Krishna. A real relationship with Krishna means what? That in any real, serious, close relationship, if something is burdening our heart, we do express our heart to Krishna. We express our heart to the other person. And sometimes, if a child is small, the parents may have some financial anxiety, some social anxiety. They may not tell. And that's understandable. But the child grows up, child has become a young adult or has become an adult, and the parents don't tell. That will create a barrier between them. If, say, the husband comes from work and the husband is very stressed, but the wife, what's the matter? So there are many things about my life I can't tell you. Really? If same thing, the wife is upset from work and she comes and what's wrong? I can't tell you what's wrong. Well, if you don't share our heart, then there is going to be a barrier that is going to be created. Now, of course, what to share, how, when to share, all those things have to be appropriately decided. But it's important that in seeking purity in our relationship, purity means, Krishna, my concern is only to serve you. Yes, we want purity, but sometimes what happens is, if we are at this level, we're just doing some seva, and we try to jump to pure devotional service. But what happens? That seems too high, and instead of going up, we end up going down only. We go away from Krishna. That if something is burdening our heart, praying to Krishna about it is not a wrong thing at all. There's anyabhilasha shunyam and anyabhilashita shunyam. A devotee does not make the basis of the relationship with Krishna constantly asking Krishna, give me this, give me that, give me that. But so anyabhilasha is desires. Abhilashita is the inclination, the tendency to keep asking Krishna. Krishna, give me this, Krishna, give me that, Krishna, give me that. No, a devotee focuses on doing one's dharma. But when there are certain serious situations in our life, we can always open our heart and pray to Krishna. So when Draupadi was being disrobed, she's praying to Krishna for help. Now, is she seeking material help or spiritual help? That question is immaterial, isn't it? Isn't it? And that, in such an emergency situation, she has enough faith to call out to Krishna, to depend on Krishna. That is laudable over there. So to call it as material is actually trivializing the whole situation. It's an emergency. And what will a devotee do if not call out to Krishna in such a situation? So we don't have to differentiate. If something is very, very important for us, in the name of maintaining a pure devotional attitude, I'll not ask Krishna for anything. No, we can ask Krishna if that is important for us. But at the same time, we can make the prayer a prayer of submission. Krishna, I feel this is very important for me if this works out. And this is the reason I think this is important. Please let this happen. And if this is not meant to happen, then please guide me how I should move ahead in my life. How you want me to serve. So we are using our intelligence to find a path towards Krishna. But if this is not the path Krishna wants us to take, then we are submissive. Krishna, how do you want me to move ahead? So when we have that attitude, then we'll find that even if that particular situation is not resolved in the way we wanted it to be, but still we will come closer to Krishna. We'll come closer to Krishna means what will happen is, sometimes if we have some problem and we have a counselor, a mentor, we talk with them about the problem. Then maybe there's no immediate solution to it, but just that we get to talk with them, that unburdens our heart, and that if they listen to us, then what happens is we come closer to them. So that when we pray to Krishna about some artha, something that is important for us. So how can we do that so that our emotions are not choked? That first step is that we express why is it so important for us. That means why is it so important for us? We try to express that, means we try to tell Krishna how this artha can help us in paramartha. Krishna, I want this for you. If say we lost our job and we are worried about that, we have a family, if our health is going down, if somebody wants to get married and they're not finding a partner. Now these are important things in life, practically speaking. So how we think that artha will help us in the pursuit of paramartha, Based on that, we can express our desire. Now, after expressing is then after that is accepting. So the key thing is, having desire is not a problem. It is just having desire does not make our bhakti contaminated. It does not interrupt our bhakti. The problem is, sometimes we have desire, and from that desire becomes a demand. And then that demand becomes an ultimatum. Krishna, if you don't do this, then I'll stop chanting. If you don't do this, I'll never come to your temple again. So a devotee never makes an ultimatum to Krishna. So we express, then we are accepting Krishna's will. Krishna, if this is not meant to happen, I accept it. But then thirdly, what we do is, we are seeking guidance. Okay, Krishna, if this is not the way you want me to move ahead, how do you want me to move ahead? So, if you see, I don't have time to analyze this. If you look at Madhya Bhagavad Dharma, the prayer which the Prabhupada offers, there's this sequence in that. Prabhupada says that he's expressing his desire that I'm going to speak the Bhagavatam. Please make this Bhagavatam, the message that I'm speaking, understandable to them. So, Prabhupada is not just going blindly on faith. There is faith, but Prabhupada has a strategy. And he says, I have the faith that Krishna, he says that here, Bhagavatera katha sei taba avatar, dhira hoya shune jadi kane bar bar. That Bhagavat is actually your avatar. And he's making a very specific prayer. Krishna, please make my words understandable to them. Then after saying this, then what Prabhupada is offering? He's saying, Krishna, if it is your will, it will happen. If it is not, it will not. Tomara ichhaye sab hoye mayara parash. Tomara ichhaye hoye sab mayavash. Tomara ichhaye nasha mayara parash. And then finally he says, Nachao, nachao Prabhu, nachao se mate. Krishna, Prabhu, Krishna, please make me dance, make me dance. As you want to make me dance, make me dance. So there is surrender. But the surrender is not thoughtless surrender. It is not helpless surrender in the sense that I can't do anything, so whatever you tell me, I'll do it. No, Krishna has given us intelligence, we use intelligence. Krishna has given us some artha, we use that artha. So in that way, the things that matter to us they matter to Krishna, but for us, Krishna should matter more than the things that matter for us. So that is the test of our purity in bhakti. And I'll summarize what we discussed today. We're talking about broadly like emotionally healthy bhakti, we can say. We're talking about emotionally healthy spirituality in general. But here, today's topic, in bhakti specifically, how can it be emotionally healthy? I talk about 3 broad points. First, I started by talking about how in our relationship with Krishna, that there are things that are important for us. Are they important for Krishna? So for us, we discussed how the material spiritual difference we make. That for us, say the material may be more important and the spiritual may be less important. For Krishna, the spiritual is more important and the material is important. But still, material is also important for Krishna. So this is one way we can look at it. But the material spiritual difference, we can make it by composition or we can make it by application. So what is material and what is spiritual? This is actually the second point I discussed, but in the review I'll take it first. And we discussed how we can differentiate things as spiritual and material, or we can differentiate as spiritual, and within the material there is sattva, rajas and tamas. So this is a more complete differentiation. Sattva is pro-devotional, rajas is non-devotional, and tamas is anti-devotional. So this can help us move closer towards Krishna. This will take us away from Krishna. It depends on how we use it. So we talk about this concept of artha and paramartha. So artha, we get infatuated by it. That is not healthy. We become neglectful of it. That is also not healthy. what we do is we use for Paramartha. Arjuna had archery ability. He developed that ability and he used it for Krishna's service. So before that, the point I discussed was how when we approach God, the spirituality can be unhealthy if we are approaching at the level of fear, that is in tamas, desire, duty and love. Now we want to get to the level of love. So how we approach God. But when we are approaching at the level of fear, what may happen is we may have a very negative conception. So we don't want to suppress our emotions, nor do we want to simply express our emotions. We want to process our emotions. So overall, just like we have an elder figure in our life, we'll be respectful. But respect does not mean that there are no other emotions in the relationship. In a real relationship, there will be many different emotions will be there. We discussed how Draupadi even questioned Krishna. Why were you not there for me? There will be foundationally, there is love, there is respect. Those are big emotions within it. But along with that, there can be anger that can come. There can be fear that can come. There can be fear, astonishment. All these other emotions can also come up. Excitement, astonishment. So, this is the nature of our relationship with Krishna. And then finally, I talked about how when we are practicing bhakti, what do? We want to get to the level of from service to devotional service. By service, what do I mean? Like some people come, they just like to do some volunteer work. They like to serve some prasad, clean something and do something. They're not really concerned with it for Krishna. They may do it anywhere. But then they start doing it for Krishna. So we cannot jump to pure devotional service very easily. And if we force ourselves to jump, we may end up actually going down. May feel disconnected from Krishna. So if we desire artha, that is okay. There's nothing intrinsically wrong in it. But what we should make sure is the desire for artha is not greater than the desire for paramartha. So our desire never becomes a demand or an ultimatum. So it is that Krishna, I am surrendered to you. So in this way, what will happen is we express our desire, then we accept what Krishna does. At the same time, we seek guidance. So we express our desire. In this way, we will, even if that particular thing does not work out, we will be able to feel more connected with Krishna. And this is what Prabhupada does broadly in his prayer, Markine Bhagavad Dharma. So this way, we can have an emotionally healthy and rich relationship with Krishna in our bhakti. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments?
Jai.
It's a little too much. Yesterday, I think we had discussed a question. What was it about? Injustice? No, what is it? Yeah. Here, Vijay Gopikesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Very wonderful. Nice. The way you wrapped it up is really, really excellent. Coming to the question yesterday, we were saying about if you are tolerant all the time, people may see that as a weakness and take advantage of you. The more you're tolerating, the more.
Yeah.
That was the question, how to deal with that,
Yeah, so if we tolerate, people can start seeing it as weakness. Yes, that's definitely possible. That's why tolerance is not a virtue in isolation. Now, tolerance is for a purpose. So, when does it become weakness? When basically it leads to like we let even big things become small. So we have to decide which are the things which are important for me. And for those, I will be ready to fight. And if we are, so it's like tolerance enables us to choose our battles. But tolerance is not about never fighting any battles. That is not going to happen in this world. It's like when we function in Krishna talks about in 8.7, Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha. So Anusmara is inner remembrance, Yudhyacha is the outer fighting. So in one sense we could say as devotees, for us internally we want to have Vrindavan. But externally we are often in Kurukshetra. So now what should not happen is, if we think it will be 100% Vrindavan, if we expect this is 100% Vrindavan, that we are in for a rude shock. We'll realize it's not like that. Sometimes we can get exploited, we can get abused, we can become manipulated. If we start thinking that, everything is wonderful over here. Everything is wonderful in the sense that ultimately we are pursuing a wonderful goal. So, but on the other hand, if we let it become 100% Kurukshetra, that will make us very bitter. Because if you are constantly in a fighting mood, then the devotional mood will become lost. So it is like, we have to basically, it is situational, Desha Kala Patra. So as devotees, we have to be able to maintain both. And Srila Prabhupada, for example, was in Vrindavan, and in many ways when he went abroad, it was a battlefield. There were devotees who were themselves struggling with their internal conditionings. There were devotees who were leading various projects. They sometimes made mistakes, and he had to deal with all those things. So it was like Kurukshetra. But Prabhupada never lost that mood. Ultimately, he was grounded in Vrindavan. He was in that Vrindavan consciousness that of wanting to serve. So I think it's choosing our battles. And it become, now can it be that it's weakness? Well, some people will always think of it as weakness. Because some people will be that they may want us to fight any and every fight. And like suppose we are answering a question, and we may answer in a non-confrontational way. And somebody may say, you should have confronted at that particular time. But it depends. I was once invited to a Ganesh Puja festival. Now it is important that we also understand Desha Kala Patra. Like the only country in the world where ISKCON is officially banned is Singapore. And in Singapore, actually, we have Hinduism is a recognized religion. But what happened initially when our Western devotees, they went to Singapore, the local Hindus welcomed them. And they organized big programs for them. And there are Indian expatriates who gone there many generations before also. So there was in Shiva temple, Durga temple, Murugan temple, Ayyappa temple. They organized programs, and in those temples, the devotees criticized the Devata worship. Those who worship Devatas are less intelligent. And it just led to so much disruption that finally some of these Hindu groups only tell that this is a disruptive group and we don't want them. They are not actually Hindus. And because of that complaint, we got banned. Now this happened 30, 40 years ago. Still we are trying to get over it. So now, if we are going to that kind of program, where somebody else has organized the program for us, it's not our forum. If somebody asks about Lord Shiva, or somebody asks about Lord Ganesh, we should speak their glories in a devotionally compatible way. But we don't have to necessarily minimize their position in any way. So we have to choose our battles. So is it somebody may say it's weakness? Oh, you should have spoken Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. See, what happens in the general Hindu community, nobody is opposed to the idea that Krishna is God. What people are opposed is only Krishna is God. Now, there's a difference and there's a place to express the difference. But that place doesn't have to be everywhere. So, tolerance becomes weakness when we never choose to face any battle only. But, so if in our program, say in our ISKCON temple or in a satsang program in our home with many devotees present, if somebody comes and says, okay, my guru is God, then we don't want to criticize anyone, but we have a duty at that particular point to clarify, that Bhagavan has 6 opulences, and we have to clarify. But if we are invited to some program organized by some other organization, and there we are asked to speak, and there they have the picture of the Guru, and we are expected to do some arti over there, something like that. Now, either we should not go there, or if we go there, we have to act in a way that is appropriate with the expectation of that forum. So I'm talking about this as an example of choosing our battles. So tolerance is not about never fighting a battle, it is about choosing our battles. Okay? Thank you.
He died a violent death.
So
Take that as a case study, if you like.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just extending the question a little bit.
Yeah. When I started my international tour, I asked my spiritual master Radhanath Maharaj for his blessings and guidance. So he said that, be very careful about planted questions. So I said, what do you mean, Maharaj? He says, somebody may deliberately ask you a question to get you into trouble. No, of course. No. So, yeah.
He was not saying tolerate, don't fight back. Right?
Yeah, that's a good example. See, this is not a planted question. But in some forum it can be. But see, the problem is, there are two distinct things over here. If we look at the Gita, I believe it's 1841 and 42. 1841 is the characteristic of Brahmanas. Shamo damastapa shaucham shantir arjavam evach. So Shanti can be peacefulness, it can be forgiveness, which actually leads to peacefulness. But Kshatriya quality is described as heroism, tejak, and then all those are described. One thing is yuddhe chapya apalayanam. That don't flinch or flee from a fight. So these are actually not just differing, but opposing virtues. Brahmana is forgive, be peaceful, don't fight. Kshatriya is don't run from a fight. Don't even flinch when there is a fight. If it's required, fight. So these are very different values. So forgiveness, non-violence, tolerance, these are all, they are very good as individual virtues. Each one of us in our relationships can become benefited by having non-violence, tolerance, forgiveness, all of these. At the same time, none of these can be a social or a governmental policy. It happened actually in California during the pandemic. They said, people are so poor and people don't have money. So they made a rule that if anybody breaks into a supermarket and steals anything below $750, they will not even be arrested. And then what happened? People just started breaking into the supermarkets and started stealing. And it's not that they were stealing bread and stuff like that. They would look at the price tag, and even Louis Vuitton purses, which are less than $750, they would sell them on eBay and stuff like that. So we cannot make forgiveness a state policy. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that you are a warrior. You are a warrior and you have to fight. So as an individual you can forgive. But when you are representing the state, you cannot forgive. There also forgiveness is there. It's more officially called as pardon. But then that is an exception. That is not the norm. So now, with respect to Gandhiji, if we go into a little bit in the history, as a tactic, as a strategy, non-violence was a sound strategy. Because what happened in America, most of us know that possessing guns is a big right. And that the reason for that is when the American revolutionaries were about to, they rose in rebellion against the British government. There was a place, I think Luxembourg or something like that, where the British had kept all their gunpowder. And both the British troops were trying to reach there and the American band of revolutionaries were trying to reach there. And somehow a storm came and whatever happened, and the Americans were able to reach there. And because they got that gunpowder, and they had guns, they made guns, that's what tilted the odds in their favor. Otherwise, there was no chance they could have won. So after that, both the British and the Americans learned different lessons. The Americans learned a lesson that it should be our right to have guns. And they don't want guns to fight against thieves. They say we should have guns to fight against the government. That the ordinary citizens should have guns strong enough that if the government becomes tyrannical, we can teach them a lesson. So that's quite a different way of looking at the world. But pertinent to us, the lesson that the British learned is that the colonized people, we should never give them access to weapons. And that's why in India, it was the Indian revolutionaries, they just had no access to guns. So for them to mount an armed rebellion against the British was impossible. And that's why strategically, it was a good strategy. But eventually, I think Attlee was the Prime Minister of India. He wrote a memoir and he said that what forced us to leave was not the non-violent struggle. It's just two things: the Second World War II, which just demolished British power, and second was the Subhash Chandra Bose Indian National Army, when they raised in rebellion against us. So how effective was it? Well, it's a sound strategy. And Prabhupada also says that in the second chapter, that non-violence can be a strategy, but it's not a principle for a Kshatriya. And also, see what happened? The British also had some level of conscience. See, Jesus had said that if somebody slaps you, turn the other cheek. So when Gandhi did that, he was non-violent. Like for them, something in their own heart, like this person is actually embodying a Christian value more than us. So that also had an effect. So when he was about to fast to death, Jesus had fasted for 40 days. So they would somehow give some concessions and try to adjust. But when their Muslims were going on riots and Muslims were demanding partition, there's nothing like that in the Islamic tradition. When Gandhi said, I'll fast to death, the Muslims said, okay, fast, we don't care. So this is not a criticism of Islam. I'm saying that it's just that each religion comes from a particular historical context. So non-violence, to whatever extent it works, it was because of socio-political and cultural and religious factors. So non-violence cannot be made into an absolute principle. It'll just never work. Good point. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have a question regarding, when Eklavya taken Dronacharya without knowing that as a guru, it said that he not did right. Guru should be like, there should be a relation and the guru should accept the Shishya first. So is it like we should be having a relation with guru, whether it is a Shiksha guru or initiative guru, or no, it's it's like if someone is giving you spiritual knowledge, you don't need any particular relation. You should be grabbing that from that person.
Okay. So in the Eklavya relationship, is it that Eklavya he was wrong in seeking knowledge from Drona when Drona was not giving? So for us also in spiritual knowledge, if somebody is giving spiritual knowledge, should we accept it, or only when we take Diksha can we accept the knowledge? I think wherever knowledge we get, we should accept it, we should value it, we can apply it in our lives. In the Bhagavatam, there is a concept of 24 gurus. And this is an observant student, this Brahmana, he learns even from the sky and the clouds and the river and the trees. So these are not even teaching him anything, but just by observing he learns. So we should learn from wherever we can gain knowledge. Now I think Eklavya, it's a complicated story, but two main issues were that specifically when Krishna talks about guna and karma. Now these words can be understood in different ways. Guna, karma, vibhasha. Now karma is competence. How good a person is at doing something. Guna can mean different things. One meaning is character. So, in the case of Eklavya, what Drona observed was that he definitely had the skill to become an archer, but a Kshatriya should be a protector, not an exploiter, not an abuser, not a destroyer. So, in that case, he told him that you should not learn archery. I don't want to teach you archery. So, if the Guru has specifically told us don't do something, then doing that, it is at least some degree a problem. But the bigger problem was something second. He made an effigy of Drona, and you could say he was devoted to Drona, that's how he was worshipping Drona. But he was also claiming that Drona is my Guru. So, if the Guru has given some instruction and we don't follow that instruction, and then we claim this person is my Guru, then that is where it becomes a problem. So, Eklavya's case is a bit complicated. And when Drona asked him for his thumb, it was externally, it may seem, he was threatened that Arjuna may not be the best archer, Eklavya will become the best archer. That's one way of looking at it. And there is some validity to that. But if we look at it, if Dronacharya was so insecure, then why did he teach Drishtadyumna, who was destined to kill him? Drishtadyumna? Yeah, Drupada's son. He was born to kill him. He taught him also. So it's not that simple. So the understanding over there is he felt that he was belonging to, he had his academy, his Gurukul was arranged for by the Kuru dynasty. And Eklavya belonged to a community called the Nishadas, and they were often engaged in disruptive, destructive, insurgency kind of activities, troubling the Kuru kingdom. So naturally, if there's an Indian National Army, and somebody, say, who's an Naxalite, and who is blowing up Indian soldiers, that person comes, I want to train in over there. You'll at least question, can such a person be trained? So he said, I cannot teach you. And then, when he saw that he had learned, he says, if you're taking credit, then he asked him for his thumb. So now by that, what happened was that he was still remained an archer, but he was not that deadly an archer. But eventually, still he went and joined Jarasandha's army. And then in one of the wars when Jarasandha had attacked Mathura, Krishna killed Eklavya. That's described in the Mahabharata. So that is specifically the Eklavya story. It's a complex story. But regarding our point, wherever we get spiritual knowledge, we should take and we should learn, especially if we can take it in Sampradaya, from a Guru who comes in Sampradaya with a Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, that's wonderful. And we take Diksha, that is more like a formalization of our commitment to learning and applying and growing thereby. Okay.
And one more question, Prabhuji, regarding that Draupadi Chirharan. You mentioned that Krishna, when Draupadi is opening her heart to Krishna, Krishna said that, no, I don't know that this thing is happening. Is that we say like it's a Leela part that Krishna is saying this thing, or is some like
yes,
Krishna
of course.
is really not knowing?
Of course, it's Leela.
It's a
See,
Leela.
when Krishna says that I didn't know what was happening over here. So does Krishna really not know? See, when Krishna, when he descends to the world, when he comes as an avatar, he often acts like a human being. Sometimes he may act like an omnipotent being, but not always. Yesterday I was just telling the story about how Maricha conspired to abduct Sita. So I was telling the story in America, and one boy asked me this question, that when Maricha called out with his dying breath, last breath, hey Lakshman, hey Sita, why did Ram not call out? That's not me, that's Maricha. The whole problem could have been avoided. So, the point is that Lord Ram is playing a Naralila. And when you talk about Naralila, what happens is, we humans are actually, from a moral perspective, the Devatas are higher than Manavas and the Asuras are lower than Manavas. But from a physical perspective, in terms of strength, the humans are lower. And the asuras are actually higher than manavas. And the devatas are also higher, they're slightly higher. So, Maricha was the asura. So his voice was much louder. And Lord Ram, as a manava, his voice was smaller. So his voice would not reach. That's why he immediately turned, he checked that whether Maricha is dead, and as soon as he is dead, he charged back and ran back. So generally the Lord acts within human limitations. He doesn't have to act, but the whole point of Leela is that he often acts within human limitations. And that's how the Leela can happen. Otherwise, many times if Krishna knows everything, then there is nothing, there's no suspense, there's nothing impossible, and then there is no scope for even a story over there. So yes, it's a Leela basically. Leela basically means that the Lord who is omnipotent chooses for some purpose, for some time, to conceal his omnipotence. He's all-knowing, he's all-doing, all complete strength, supreme knowledge, he decreases that. Okay.
And is there any karma involved in Draupadi Chirharan, that why she faced this thing?
Is there karma involved in Draupadi's Chiraharana? See, generally, this is a very important question. When some adversity, something tragic, some adversity or some tragedy happens to someone, it's extremely important what we focus on at that time. At that time, our focus should be on our dharma, not on their karma. Because if we start doing that, we will become very cold-hearted. That when something bad has happened, in general, Krishna does not give a flashback to Draupadi to say why this happened. The Bhagavad Gita's mood is also not like that. When Arjuna has to fight against Bhishma and Drona, Krishna does not tell him. Krishna says, I know past, present and future. I know your past lives also. But Krishna still doesn't say that Bhishma was so and so in that life, and I was so, you were so and so, and you did this and you did this. That's why we have to fight. So, in general, we don't, when something bad has happened to someone, now that person may subjectively say that, oh, I don't know what karma I had done because of this is happening. It's probably my own past karma. But others should never say that. Because others' focus should be on our dharma. Say, if somebody's house is robbed, and they go to the police said, it was your own karma, it got robbed. Well, it is your dharma to protect. Isn't that's your job, that's your duty. And where do we stop this then? Isn't it, if a mother has a newborn baby and the baby is crying, and a mother goes to comfort the baby. Oh, don't comfort the baby is crying because of her own past karma. We will become monstrously insensitive that way. So when somebody is suffering, I haven't seen any example in scripture where somebody else tells them it's your own karma. That person may feel like that. But at that time when somebody is suffering, our focus should always be on what is our dharma. So neither in the case of Draupadi nor in the case of Sita, nobody tells you must have done some karma because of it this happened to you. That may be the truth, but that is never the focus. The focus is on what we can do to help address the situation. In general, the principle of karma, its focus is not so much judgment as it is encouragement. Judgment means what? That you have done something and that's why you are suffering. There's a truth to that, but encouragement means what? That our actions matter. Our choices matter. Our karma will have a phala, either in the immediate future or the distant future. But sometimes when we are going through a negative phase, our karma may not show any phala. Like I may be kind to someone and that person may still be constantly unkind to me. And I may start thinking, what is the use of being kind? But no, in that particular relationship, that kindness may not have any result. But if I learn to be kind, that will be valued elsewhere. So in that sense, it is always good to have that positive attitude. Okay? Thank you. So
Prabhu Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhu, for wonderful class as always, and a beautiful series of 3 classes on this wonderful topic. And very nice insights. I was actually could not come all the 3 classes physically, but I was there online. I could hear some of the aspects. The question was regarding the big things and the small things, which you mentioned. And the question is that when we're talking to someone, somebody is disturbed or somebody is mentally agitated, or there is discussion going on, how we can actually genuinely appreciate that it is actually a small thing or a big thing. Generally, first of all, acknowledge that, and then address that also with that person.
How do we know what is a small thing, what is a big thing? It's difficult to say. I try to use a 3-point framework called TIE. TIE is like, first is transcendence. That means that we use scripture. From scripture we understand what are the important things in our life. Then we use our practical buddhi, intelligence. Okay, this is important, this is not so important. But third is, we look at our own experience. So, pratyaksha-avagamam dharmyam. That means I may decide this is a small thing, but then say if now some of you are sitting on the floor, some of you are sitting on the chair. Now you may decide, okay, I want to sit on the floor, I can tolerate even if it's a little painful, I can tolerate. But you sit down on the floor and you sit down and you find you keep sitting down only, you can't get up only. Your leg starts cramping or paining. Then you may decide that next time I'll sit on a chair. So I thought it was a small thing, but it turns out to be a big thing. So sometimes we learn from experience. So in general, it's good to have some frame of reference by which we are able to decide what are small things and big things. But that frame of reference cannot be rigid. Things change. So it's like if we make a daily plan, we have to have some daily plan. But is it that the daily plan, okay, this schedule, this is the time I'll do this is the time I'll do this. Do we stick to it like 100% all the time? No, sometimes other emergencies come up. Sometimes we may have to adjust our plan. But we can have some plan and then we can adjust it. So like that, we have some framework. So generally, with our scriptural study, through scripture, we get the transcendental intelligence. Grandly to sattva. The more we are in sattva, our own intelligence develops. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. And then our experience, it is when we reflect on it. The word for it that is introspection, or it's called, Sanskrit word is simhavalokanam. Simhavalokan means what? Like when a lion or a tiger, lion is chasing a animal, it runs and it stops and senses, okay, where am I? Are there any other predators over there? Is there any other prey over there? Runs, pause, runs, pause, runs, pause, like that. So like that we need to pause to introspect. Look at our own experience and learn. So by that gradually we get a sense of what are the big things and what are small things. Okay. Thank you.
Just one more question I had, sorry, but quick one. Regarding Maharaj, Prabhu, you mentioned regarding the service, then that was material service, I guess?
Service, devotional service, and pure devotional
and
service.
the pure devotional service, yeah, sorry. So how would one figure out whether one has actually jumped from service to direct to pure devotional service and he's forcing this upon himself or herself? What are the criteria for that, and to just safeguard ourselves?
How can we know whether we have artificial jump to the level of pure devotional service? Well, we will feel emotionally suffocated. That means, see, generally, when difficulties or problems come in our life, we should feel more connected with Krishna at that time. We should feel more sheltered in Krishna. So, for example, if somebody in our family is sick, we say, for pure devotional service, because I want to be a pure devotee, I won't pray to Krishna for any help. Then, okay, that's possible. See, there are different modes in which somebody can serve. So, somebody can accept that, that's fair enough. But somebody finds that, okay, whatever Krishna happens, Krishna, I'll accept that. But somebody else may say, no, Krishna, please, this is important, please. We pray to Krishna for that. So the end result should be that we should feel emotionally connected with Krishna. There's a friend of mine, he's a senior devotee. He was in Mumbai, and he had gone for a program. And at that time, this was late 1990s or early 2000. At that time, this big riots had broken out in Mumbai. So he was in Saffron carrying books, and he saw this rioters just charging. Just dropped the books and he ran. And he ran and ran, and somehow he hid somewhere, he survived. Then he went and he went to the temple. He told Radha Maharaj happened to be there. He asked Maharaj, I was giving this class before the program, satsang. I was telling people that you are not the body or the soul. But when I saw these rioters, I just ran. He says, am I being a hypocrite? So Maharaj said, no, it depends. So should I have just stayed and accepted what happened? He says, no, it depends on the consciousness. Somebody may decide, okay, if Krishna wants, Krishna will protect me. And they may not run from there. But somebody else may decide, Krishna, I want to do much more service for you, and this body is my tool for serving you, serving my Guru. And for that, I'll protect my body. So it is that, now is not running away and staying over there a more surrendered consciousness than running away and trying to protect ourselves? Life is not that simple. No, bhakti is about a state of consciousness. So which is a consciousness that is more connected with Krishna? Is it that when somebody is running away, they are not dependent on Krishna? Maybe, maybe not. Somebody who is, what a person is doing externally is not as important as what is their consciousness internally. If you saw, because this is an important point, if you see, the bhakti in the Gita and the Bhagavatam is actually very different. While both are talking about the same principle of bhakti, but in the Bhagavatam, it is Parikshit Maharaj is the key character. And Parikshit Maharaj has accepted that this curse has come, and he sees even the curse as Krishna's arrangement. That snake bird will come as Krishna's arrangement. And in this case, what happens is he accepts. He accepts Krishna's will. But Arjuna actually wants to turn away from the world and renounce the world. And Krishna says, no, don't do that. Turn to the world and fight in the world. So he accepts, like I mentioned yesterday, the responsibility to do Krishna's will. So I don't think there's any black and white. So is Parikshit's surrender greater than Arjuna's surrender? No, it's not like that. If some devotee gets cancer, and that devotee says, okay, no, I'll just leave the world and I'll go to Vrindavan and I'll die peacefully in Vrindavan. But if that devotee is, say, 20, 30, 40 years old, so not necessary. You try some treatment, see what works. But if the devotee is 75, 80, 85, and the devotee gets cancer, the devotee may decide, okay, I have lived my life. I want to go to Vrindavan. That's okay. So there's a lot of individuality in the way we function in the world. So it's not a 1 or a 0. Okay? Thank you.
When you mentioned about the service, devotional service and pure devotional service, how do we differentiate? When we are serving the food or serving prasadam as a service, can it be a devotional service as well? Or is there any sort of
Okay, so when is it devotional service and when is it just service? It depends. Like some people like to do volunteer work, and they will do volunteer work anywhere. They may go and okay, I want to serve poor people some food. For them, their focus is on we are serving poor people food. The focus is not that this is prasad. So for them, it is service. It's connected with Krishna, and that is good. But often that may fall in something like agyat sukruti. They're doing something good which will bring them to Krishna. So to the extent when the devotional service is Krishna, we are conscious of Krishna, it becomes devotional service. And when it is only for Krishna's pleasure, then it becomes pure devotional service. Okay? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. Another great session, really wonderful. Prabhu,
whenever Lord Krishna talks about tolerance in the Gita, whether you're talking about 2.14 or later on also like 6.7 and all, he focuses on 3 points that, for example, the dualities are very ephemeral, they are inevitable, and they are peripheral to our core being. I mean, this is the constant message. I mean, later on in 6.7 also when he talks about equanimity, Sitoshna Sukh Dukh, Tatha Man Apma, So the point is, if somebody is, let's say, deliberately abusing a person and trampling upon, let's say verbally trampling upon a person, and the other person just sort of tolerates it, considering Lord Krishna's instruction, will it not amount to passivity? I mean, I know you touched upon passivity also. So if you just remember these 3 points, that these are sort of peripheral to your core being, they are sort of inevitable and ephemeral.
So if we consider that even if somebody is abusing me, that verbally abusing me or whatever, it's all temporary, it's peripheral to my core being, whatever. So will tolerance not lead to passivity? Well, that's why we have to have that intelligence to put first things first. See, the purpose of life is not to exhaust our past karma. That is important, but that is not the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to activate our love for Krishna. And we have to choose that inner and outer environment which can help us do this. The inner and the outer environment. That will help us to do this. So if somebody is, say, like some devotees, they are trapped in Ukraine, the war is going on. And if a devotee decided that, okay, if I'm going to die over here, if I'm going to be imprisoned over here, I'm going to be tortured over here, that's my karma, I'll accept it. Okay, it's possible it's their karma and they accept it. But it is not just accepting one's karma and exhausting that karma that will lead to spiritual growth. It is a remembrance of Krishna that leads to spiritual growth. So the question is, are we remembering Krishna in that situation? Like one devotee told me that if I am sick, I will never take any painkiller. I'll never take any painkiller. Why? Because if that pain is supposed to come to me as past karma, I should not be avoiding that. Well, okay. Now this devotee, he just cannot chant without sitting under a fan. Because his body starts sweating a lot. So I told him that you are saying that pain, if you have a sickness and you have pain, that's your past karma. But the sweating and the discomfort when you're chanting, that's also past karma only. So why do you insist on having a fan? Isn't it? So he said, no, but I can't focus on Krishna. I can't remember Krishna. Says, that is the point, I said. So should we make it into a matter of principle? As devotees, we should never take painkillers? No, we can't make it a principle. So we have to do get ourselves into that situation which is anukul to our bhakti. Now, we will never have any situation which is like 100% anukul to bhakti. There will always be something which is pratikul. But what is more favorable and what is less favorable? So if a devotee has a chance for 2 jobs, one job is far away from devotee association, another job is closer to devotee association. Should the devotee think that, if I go away from devotee association, it will be unpleasant, and being in that unpleasant situation, it will exhaust my negative karma? No, not like that. See, even if we consider that karma has to come to me, even if we assume that the karma has to come, but still, how and when the negative karma comes, that is also very important. Say somebody has to have, maybe 3 terrible things are going to happen in their life. Maybe they are going to lose all their money or a large part of their savings, or money, their business is going to go bankrupt. Maybe they are going to get some terrible health disease, terrible disease. Maybe they are going to be betrayed by a loved one. Now, each of these are terrible situations. But if each of these situations comes over 15 years, then it's relatively easier to cope with that. But if all three come together, it will be completely crushing. So even if karma is unavoidable, still trying to do our dharma, so that even if the karma gets repositioned and comes later, that can make a difference. So that's why I think karma will lead to, the idea of tolerance leads to passivity only when we misapply the philosophy. The point of Krishna saying the dualities are temporary is not just tolerate whatever duality comes in your life. His point is, don't let the temporary dualities distract you from dharma. So the focus is on dharma, like Vasudeva and Devaki. When Kamsa is trying to kill Devaki, at that time one reason Vasudeva gives is that death is destined, and if something is destined, you can't avoid that. So now Vasudeva could very well have turned that argument around and said that if Devaki's death is destined, I can't prevent that. So why am I trying to argue with Kamsa? Isn't it? You're getting this point? You know that? He's telling Kamsa, if death is destined, you can't avoid it. But he doesn't turn that argument around to himself. Why? Because Kamsa is going against his dharma. A brother should be protecting his sister. Kshatriya should be protecting a woman. So, on the other hand, he is sticking to his dharma. So, philosophy should be used to encourage us to do dharma and ultimately to do bhakti. Philosophy should not be interpreted in such a way that we give up dharma and we give up bhakti. Okay. Yes, bro. Okay. Yeah. Quickly.
Is it me?
Yeah, please.
Prabhu, I have a question. It's just more of a doubt, and I'm just going to present it as if it's a devil's advocate, so that you can tear me apart here. When something negative is taking place, and we say, now I'm going to engage in an act of prayer, so that Krishna can somehow manifest in my life. Even for direction, we may not even be asking for changing the entire scenario, just what's the best thing to do. Often, to me, it feels like the silence of God is the loudest in those situations, because even after the prayer, how God's going to answer your prayer is like unknown to you. It's like, I am scribing, is this the answer, is that the answer? Similar to the other question I asked, it seems anthropomorphic. It doesn't seem obvious that this is how God is going to respond. And then it kind of feels like the entire system of faith is kind of the entire system of Krishna consciousness is kind of, in its practicality, not existent. And one prominent example is, there was a devotee who was afraid that he was going to get shot, right? In reality, that someone was going to shoot him because the killer is right in front of him. And there he prays to Krishna, please give me the intelligence so that I may answer correctly, so that I don't die. And this person didn't die, obviously. But if I were in that situation, I would just think, I'm really not sure how Krishna is going to be manifesting himself in this position, and why am I even here in the first place? So, how do we understand what Krishna's help and answer is going to be in that situation, with regards to that situation, without falling to something like, well, gratitude shows you the gifts of God in your life, and therefore the gifts of God are the good things God's given you. How do we know what God's...
gifts of God?
It's like, how do we understand God's presence in our life? Well, if you have a gratitude diary, then all the good things in your life are God's. Okay. So how do we understand what God's actual response is to us? And how do we go about life feeling shelter that Krishna is going to protect me, if you can't be sure what Krishna's protection even looks like in that situation?
So if we pray to Krishna in a particular situation, how do we know how Krishna is going to protect us? How do we know that when something is happening, this is Krishna's sign or this is Krishna's protection? Okay. I need Krishna's protection to answer this question, no? So, prayer in particular and bhakti in general. My understanding is it can work at multiple levels. At a spiritual level, at an intellectual level, at an emotional level, at a physical level. So now, in many ways, for those who have faith, the most immediate is the emotional level. That just by praying to God, just by remembering God, what happens is we remind ourselves that there is a bigger reality, and that calms us. So it's like the whole process of meditation. How it works is, if this is my consciousness, a prayer meditation is somewhat similar. So in my consciousness there are many things, and Krishna is one component in my meditation. At least one is there. But if we keep doing this, if we let Krishna be at least one component in our consciousness, then gradually Krishna becomes bigger. Krishna is revealed as bigger. Initially, we give entrance to Krishna in our consciousness. But then eventually, we gain entrance in Krishna. Gain entrance is not in the sense of merging, but it's in the immersion or absorption. So when we take shelter of something, what does it mean? That thing is bigger. Like it's raining. When I am caught in the rains and I see some tree or some shed, from far away it's a tiny shed. But when I get there, it actually gives me shelter. So at an emotional level, when we are reminded that Krishna is a bigger reality, that itself brings some calmness. So now it may not come immediately also for some time, but that calm, if we differentiate, that calmness does come at some level. And sometimes this calmness comes independent of the problem. The problem, like rains may still be falling, it may still be a storm, but we feel some relief. So now once that calmness has come, now is this calmness emotional, is that calmness spiritual? It depends. But many people experience some calmness. You come to a temple, you come to a spiritual place, the mind's agitation just seems to go away. Even non-theistic people have experienced this. They may not attribute to the deity, but they say this place has some vibes, I don't know what it is. So that at an emotional level we experience some calmness, and this is no small consolation. This is no small benefit. It is a very significant benefit. And as one of the most promising areas where science and spirituality are intersecting nowadays is the field of neuroscience. And meditation and prayer. There's a lot of evidence that if you do neural imaging, people who pray regularly, their brain cells are wired differently. And that's how, I won't go into technicalities, but they stay calmer. So this is something which does happen for many people. Now, apart from that, there can be clarity. Now, clarity may take time. Clarity may not come immediately. Now, once we have that calmness, if it goes to a spiritual level, it comes from a sense of connectedness. Now, what is the difference between calmness and connectedness? Calmness is, I don't know why I'm feeling calm, but I'm feeling calm. But connectedness is, I am conscious of Krishna's presence. That Krishna is here, Krishna is with me, and Krishna will be with me. So you could say connectedness is a much higher state than calmness. But nashto moha smritir labdha tvat prasadan mayachuta gat nashto moha sitosmi gata sandeha. Sitosmi is the sense of calmness. Gata sandeha is the state of clarity. Now, after we get that clarity, then at a physical level, we might see a pathway. Okay, this is how I need to move ahead. So we might find a channel to move ahead. We consider the river metaphor, a channel. This is where I should go. Now, this may often be the last. So spirituality and a connection and our practice of spirituality offers multi-level benefits. And one part of Krishna's plan is that we can never know for sure what is Krishna's plan. That is what, it's actually Krishna's plan only. We are finite beings, Krishna is an infinite being, and some of the most dangerous things in the world have been done by people who were convinced that they are doing God's will. So there has to be some level of humility. That, okay, this is how I want to serve Krishna, and this is what I think is the best way to serve Krishna. But if somebody starts saying that say, now I am giving this answer. Now, whatever scripture I have studied, whatever intelligence I have, I am giving the best answer. But I will never say that this is Krishna speaking through me right now. Now, somebody else may feel like that. But if I say Krishna is speaking through me right now, that means there can be nothing wrong in what I have spoken. Nothing incomplete in what I have spoken. But I am learning, I am growing. And today I may answer in a particular way. Tomorrow I might be able to answer in a better way. So, Prabhupada was completely convinced that he is fully connected with Krishna. But when an ordinary postman told him, Swamiji, you are writing magazines, people will throw them away. You write books. Prabhupada did not say, you don't know who you are speaking to? I am a Uttama Adhikari, Mahabhagavad, descended from the spiritual world. You think you can instruct me? No. Prabhupada had that openness. Prabhupada had that humility. That, okay, this is Krishna speaking through me. Speaking to me, this is actually Krishna or Guru, my Guru speaking to me through this particular postman. So that's why we can experience that calmness, the connectedness. I think those two are wonderful experiences in themselves. And clarity we might get, some channel we might get, it takes time. So in many ways, life as a devotee is like being a personal scientist. What do you mean by personal scientist? A personal scientist is opposed to an impersonal scientist. Impersonal scientist means what basically? In science, it's like objectivity is very important. You distance yourself from the experiment and you observe yourself. But bhakti is like we try to treat our life like a personal science experiment. Okay, I did this. What was the effect externally? What was the effect internally? And we learn. Prabhupada tried many things. Some things worked, some things didn't work. And whatever worked, Prabhupada continued that. Whatever didn't work, Prabhupada, okay, moved on. So, it's that, there's one last point I wanted to make with this answer. That for us, if through prayer, okay, the point I was making is, in bhakti, there is a combination of certainty and uncertainty. The certainty is that Krishna has a plan. That whatever is happening in my life, that is not random. Krishna has a plan. Prabhupada says, Ache kichu karja tabe ei anumane. That nothing is happening in my life is completely random and chaotic. Krishna has a plan. A devotee has that certainty. But what exactly is the plan? For that, a devotee can have uncertainty. Or more specifically, what is the role that Krishna wants me to play in this plan? A devotee can have uncertainty. Now, if there is only certainty, that can lead to fanaticism. There's an American president who, after 9/11 happened, he declared a war on terror. And he said that if you are not for this war on terror, then you are for terror. Now that may not be true. Maybe for against terror, but he may decide it's not. And he said at that time, God has told me to engage in this war. Now that turned out to be terrible. Now, if there's only uncertainty, that can lead to too much anxiety, insecurity. But a healthy combination of both of these leads to curiosity. That curiosity is that I'm secure in my relationship with Krishna. I'm secure in my conviction that Krishna has a plan. But at the same time, what is the specific plan for me? A devotee has that openness. So, athato brahma jigyasa. That if we have that jigyasa, we'll keep learning and we'll keep growing. Okay. Ataji, you had, I don't know how far should we go now? Can you tell me when to stop? Okay, last question we'll take then.
Hare Krishna.
You can speak loudly, I'll repeat.
Yes, so Prabhu, my question is what you just recently spoke that some of the decisions in the world, some of the people did some certain things considering that that is the will of the Lord. So my point is that we also make some certain prayers, not only after some instance, but we also make prayers to Krishna out of our certain desires connecting with the first session. So we might give certain reasonings that, okay, this is certainly Krishna's will. We might, as per your first point, that we should express to Krishna why this artha is connected with Pramartha. So we might be under an impression, or we might superimpose that this is how Krishna's will is, provided our desire might not be good enough or valid enough or as per our dharma. So how do we understand that this is the thin line when we are crossing our dharma and going just superimposing that this is Krishna's will, but this is just our invalid desire?
How do we know it is Krishna's will? Well, my understanding is that Krishna's will is more like a direction. Krishna's will is not necessarily like one specific path. It's not necessarily a narrow lane. It's like a broad pathway. So why is that? Because ultimately Krishna has given us individuality. And Krishna wants us to use that individuality. That, like I have talked with many parents, sometimes parents especially express concern in the outside India, in India also, that their children don't listen to them, children do things which hurt them. So then I ask sometimes, the parents are complaining a lot, experiencing a lot of worry. Says, would you like to replace your child with a perfectly obedient robot? Who looks just like your child? Most parents say no. As one Mataji said, I don't mind having a robot in addition to my child. So the thing is that we want our children to listen to us, but the point is, we don't want our children to be our slaves. We don't want our children to not have their individuality. We want them to make good choices. And we want to train them so that they can make good choices even when we are not there with them. So similarly, Krishna also, when doing Krishna's will, doesn't mean Krishna wants us to become like a robot. So no metaphor in the world is perfect. So when Prabhupada used the word, make me dance like a puppet. Now puppet is surrendered, but a puppet doesn't have love for the puppet master. Isn't it? So no metaphor is absolute in this world. And Krishna has given us individuality and he wants us to use that individuality. That's why it's like we experiment, we observe and we learn. So when I think I mentioned this in the other class, that when Krishna is, when the gopis cook for Krishna, it is not that Krishna every day gives a recipe and a menu and say, this is the only thing you have to cook, this is the only way you have to cook. No, they have their individuality and Krishna wants them to express their individuality. So it's like if we consider brothers, now Yudhishthira and Bhima, it's actually very difficult to conceive of two brothers who are more different than them. Yudhishthira is more like a Brahman Kshatriya. He will bend backward to avoid conflict. Now Bhima is like a Kshatriya. He's a Kshatriya squared. He's itching for a fight. But it is not that Yudhishthira had to become Bhima or Bhima had to become Yudhishthira. They were individuals and they served the Lord in their own way. Okay. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande.
His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for another wonderful session. I was just experiencing, the calmness when we hear such illustrations which are directly related to the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and it feels so good after a hard working day when we come here, when we listen to Prabhu. Actually, the mood outside and the mood inside, we can compare how beautiful this mood is. And Prabhu's lecture actually gave us that feeling. So thank you again, Prabhu, for taking us through these 3 sessions. What the things that matter to me, does it matter to Krishna, is so important for us to consider. And this is also important for us in our general lifestyle, because the relationships are important for us. So the relationships that we have within family, with the devotees, with our guru, so, and plus also most importantly with the outside world. Like Prabhu gave that example of how to not to speak something when you are in a different audience. So these are important traits that I personally carry, and I'm sure all of us have benefited. So again, thanks so much. Can we have a big Hari Bol for His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu? Hari Bol. So thank you, and
my best wishes and prayers that Krishna enrich all our hearts with devotion and devotionally rich, devotionally compatible, devotionally healthy emotions. It was wonderful to be here with all of you. I think I talked about tolerance, and you had to tolerate me for 3 days. So thank you for doing that. It was amazing to see your enthusiasm to come on 3 continuous weekdays. And I pray that all of you as a community come together more and more and do something wonderful for Krishna over here, both externally in terms of the project and internally in terms of your own personal experience of Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, and we also would like to thank His Grace Vijay Gopikesh Prabhu and Her Grace Sharanmukhi Mataji for this venue which Prabhu has provided. So thank you so much, Prabhu. So Jagannath's Ashram. So Jagannath Seva Ashram. So this is a very familiar venue for us. We come for our Bhakti Shastri classes. So we just walk in, and we make this as our home. So thanks again, Prabhu, and we look forward to more such series of lectures from His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu in the future. And as mentioned earlier, hopefully by next year when Prabhu comes, let us all pray, and please bless us, Prabhu, that the temple is completed. So on that wonderful note, His Grace Srila Prabhupada ki, His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki, Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol.